paper. I'm just saying. So not only can you make cards, you can make perforated paper. It's a really fun way to use your machine. We'll be talking about the scan and cut connected to the Brother Stellaire, but we're going to be mostly playing with the Brother Stellaire today. I'm Cathy, and this is Sewing Tech Talk. Let's do something a little bit different with our machines. Embroidery on paper may sound a little different. It's not fabric after all, but it's really pretty straightforward. There's only a couple things you need to think about. I'm going to be talking about making a card today, but there's other uses for embroidery on paper. You could make a scrapbooking paper, you could make a sun catcher, all kinds of fun different stuff. And the cool thing is when you make an embroidered card, they're probably going to keep it for, more than just the season. So let's just get started with the setup for just doing a basic card. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to embroider on this cardstock. Now the paper you choose is kind of important, although you can do any kind of paper. What happens is you're kind of embroidering on the stabilizer and the paper's just kind of getting in the way. So I'm going to use a cutaway stabilizer. It's a Floriani cutaway medium stabilizer, and I'm going to use the cutaway stabilizer because when I'm embroidering with the thread, what's going to happen is the stabilizer is going to stay with that paper. It's going to stay with the project because I really can't tear away a tearaway stabilizer. The paper might tear also, and it's going to really reinforce the integrity of the paper. Now I said you can embroider on just about any paper, even toilet tissue paper, but what's going to happen is that thin paper, you're really going to use that cutaway stabilizer on the back of it. So it's not going to be a soft, flexible tissue paper anymore. So just keep that in mind. You can embroider on just about whatever paper, but it's going to be stiffer than when you get finished. Another thing to think about is the design that you're going to choose. Yes, you're embroidering on the stabilizer and it's going to go to hold it together, but you have to remember that the needle is going to make permanent holes in that paper. And if you've ever torn anything away with a perforation, you know that if you perforate the paper along the edge, it will want to pull away, even with that stabilizer on the back. So when I choose a design, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to choose a design with that heavy fill pattern. I'm going to use mostly an outline design or a design with not a lot of stitches super close together. So let's look at the screen of the machine. I chose this design, which is built into the Brother Stellaire. And it's kind of a red work kind of design. Remember, look for your other designs that might have those fill patterns, and you might be able to just use the outline. And a little bit later on, we're going to use my design center to create our own, which is pretty cool. So what I did is I reduced the size of my design to fit the front of my 6x6 card. I like to make 6x6 cards because if you get the 12x12 piece of scrapbook paper in cardstock from just about any big box store, I can make a couple cards out of it. You can also use like a watercolor paper or a Bristol art paper, and what that does is that's a little bit, that may have some rag content to it, and that paper is not only a little bit stronger, but it's meant to last the test of time. So keep that in mind. I'm going to be just stitching on the scrapbook paper today. Now I've cut my paper and I put it right on top of my cutaway stabilizer. I kind of made little marks on the side of my paper so I could center it in the hoop. Now this is the Brother Stellaire, and I do have the special function where I can use my design snap to send a design to make sure a design fits where I want it to fit in the hoop. I can totally use that. This is paper, it's not fabric, but I can still do that as long as I leave the areas of the hoop exposed where those black and white marks are. Then the mobile device will find that. So I can use that to place it if I want to. But I find that I just kind of put it centered in the hoop and I really don't have to move it around that much. So what I've done is I've kind of taped it down with embroidery perfection tape. And because you have to attach it to the stabilizer, but not permanently. So the embroidery perfection tape, I find, works pretty mighty good. If it is kind of sticky on that paper, I just touch it to my clothing before I stick it on top of the paper. You can also use a temporary spray adhesive, or you could use both. And they're just temporary to hold that paper on there while the hoop moves around. Now, if you can see the way my card is put in the hoop, I have taped it down. I've used that temporary spray adhesive, and it may look like it's the inside of the card, but it's not. What it is I've folded the card up so it's up and out of the way of that embroidery arm. When I cut my paper, now remember, you can always use pre-done cardstock, right? You can just buy cards pre-made with envelopes, and that's even easier. But what I did is I made a score line, and I used my special scoring device. Yes, that's right. It's the stylus that comes with your machine. So I've scored down the middle, and I've temporarily put it up, but this will be the part that goes to the back when I make my card. Now, the other thing I've done is I've kind of modified the design just a little bit. Remember I talked about those perforations? Well, I don't want my stitches too close together. This design, I'm pretty sure it's going to work well, but let's just make double dog sure, right? So let's return, and I'll show you basically what I did. When I came into the design, I went into the size app and I selected the recalculate stitches. And I did that when I made my design a little bit smaller. In other words, it didn't take the amount of stitches I need for a big design and squish them all in real small. It removed some of those stitches. So my stitches aren't that close together. Once you do that, even if you don't reduce the size, you have a density option on this machine. And I took the density down to 80%. What that did is that removed even more of the stitches and still left my design recognizable for what it's supposed to be. So those are two great features on the Stellaire, which means that it's going to make my paper embroidery just a little bit easier. I've threaded the machine up with some just regular embroidery thread. I'm going to use a variegated. And in the needle, well, I've used just a top stitch, a sharper needle, because you're going through paper. So a sharp needle, a quilting needle, a top stitch needle, and I'm going to match it to the weight of the thread, is 75/80. It's going to be just fine. Now, you're embroidering through paper. What's going to happen is paper is wood, right? So you're probably going to dull your needle. It might be a good idea to change your needle after you do this project. Just saying. Okay, so everything's put in there. I have my design. I'm going to go into embroidery, and I've kind of already placed it and centered it. I kind of know where it needs to be. I could use any of the features of the Stellaire, like I said, my design snap or the trial feature. I could do anything just to make sure that it's where I need it to be. So all I have to do is stop talking and start stitching. So what I'm going to do, one other thing I've done that I might want to show you is I came into my settings, and the embroidery foot height, I kind of lowered it just a little bit. Standard is 0.06, which is maybe about 1/4 inch-ish, but I lowered it just a bit. Why? Well, because when I come over here to the side, if this kind of fold is lifting it up just a little tiny bit, I want to make sure that it's not jumping up and down and giving me kind of a chatter. So that's basically what I did there. Don't forget to change it back to the standard after you finish your paper embroidery. Okay, I think that's enough of the settings. All I have to do, it's a regular embroidery. All I have to do is press start, and then when we come back, what I'd like to do is show you how I finish what I'm going to do on the back of this design, because you have to cover it up. You have to cover up the back of it, because you're going to leave that stabilizer in there, and we want to make a card pretty, right? So let's get going. I'm going to stitch this out, and I'll be right back. So I got my really cute card done. I used that variegated thread and it came out really, really nice. Now we need to line the inside of it. This page, we could line the whole thing. And just we could put a piece of regular paper there, right? But why do that when you can be special? So I'd like to talk about perforating paper right now, because we've used thread on this. But remember, the machine, the needle is going to make permanent holes. So you can perforate the paper and make a cute design. So when I did this card, now this is a large format card. It's going to cost you more to mail it, but it's a presentation card, right? What I do when I make something like this is I wrap it in cellophane. The card's part of the gift. Imagine for a graduation or a wedding, something that's going to be a memento that they can keep. You can almost use it for a photo album too. But if you look at the card, you'll see that not only did this is a built-in design with the stellaire, but I also did a perforation down here on the bottom. And this word piece came from the Scan and Cut. Now this stellaire and the Scan and Cut 325 are connected to each other with my connection. That means in my design center, what I can do is I can use the designs that are built into the Scan and Cut to create really cool embroideries in my design center. So let's make that inside liner equally special. And we're going to do it with some perforation. So now let's set up for that. Now, basically I have to create my design. So in my design center, what I did is I brought up the word happy. This came from the Scan and Cut. Now I also sent the word spring, so happy spring. So I'm going to come to my shapes and I'm going to go to the Scan and Cut. Now this icon comes up when you connect the machines together, and it's going to bring up all the different designs that I've sent over from the Scan and Cut. This is artwork and I can use it to create designs. And it's bringing over, it's transferring it wirelessly, which I think is pretty cool. And there's spring, and I'm going to say okay. And it brought it up. It's below the happy, so let's move it down. And make it look kind of cute, right? Okay, so I think that's going to work. I think that's the right size. I can count the little squares, 1, 2, 3. I think it's going to fit into my 6x6 card. Remember, this is going to be on the liner, okay? Now, I brought it in so that I have it with just a double run. I don't have a zigzag or anything like that. And when I hit next, that's where I can assign the stitch properties. Remember, I don't want these stitches too close together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link everything and make sure I have everything selected. And I'm going to increase my stitch length, which is called the run pitch. I'm going to take it up to about a little bit over 1, because I found that works pretty good. It goes up to 0.2, which are really big stitches, and you can use that. In fact, I've thought of, once you make the perforations, you could even come through with some hand stitching. Stitching on perforated paper is something that is pretty cool. Let me see that. I have it here. I know I do. So this is stitching on perforated paper. It might be kind of hard to see, but can you see how you're just doing the regular stitching through? Now I'm not making paper with all these holes, but what if I came in later on and did some hand stitching through part of this? Here's a perforated paper I made with one of the fills inside. The fills look really great. This is kind of something that could be used. This could be a scrapbook paper. You can make all your scrapbook friends envious. Or maybe you want to start another hobby. So let's do Happy Spring. I've changed it up. I'm going to hit set, and we're going to send this off to the embroidery machine area. I'm going to go preview. Okay. There it is. And when I hit set, it sends it off to the land of embroidery. Now I'm going to change the machine over so that I'm doing just perforations. I'm not going to be doing any thread. And if you stitched on your embroidery machine like the stellaire, you know that if you're not stitching without thread, or you run close to the end of the bobbin, it gives you a message and it's not going to want to stitch. Well, we can override that because we know how to do it. So when I come up to the settings, what I can do is, there's where I lowered the height of my embroidery foot. Don't forget to change it back when you're regular. Now you don't have to do this. I find that it works really good for the paper. So I'm going to go next, and I'm going to look for I'm going to look for the upper and bobbin thread sensor. Now you can see that it's on right now, and this is what gives you that message if you're running out of bobbin thread. I'm going to turn it off. Okay. Now, I don't have thread. I'm not going to be using thread, so let's take it out. And I am going to change my needle. I'm going to go to a larger needle because the holes is really what I want. So I'm going to go up with a jeans denim 110. It's a size 18. It's another sharp needle, but it's going to give me just a little bit larger of a hole. Remember, I'm not worried about the thread coming through the needle. Now the other thing I'm going to do is when I go to embroidery, well, I can use it to punch my little holes. I don't need to have the thread cutting because I don't have any thread. So I'm going to turn both of those off. Now, I think I'm pretty much ready to go. I put my paper in, I've centered it. I'm using that same green, so it's going to look pretty fabulous. And I made little marks to make sure that it's centered in my hoop. And I have it on that cutaway stabilizer again. So, I think I'm ready to go. So I love this perforated paper technique. This is a couple of the designs that I sent over. I hope you can see them. These are a couple of designs I sent over from the Scan and Cut as well. There's that piece, and there's a fun little design that I started. Now, there's built-in shapes also in my design center, and I did use that to create this. And then I used the matrix copy to spread it on out. I think I'm going to run out of paper before I run out of ideas, because I can even, my goodness, I think I'm really going to have to get busy making cards for everyone. So I finished my perforations on my inside liner. Now I'm making a 6x6 card, right? But you can use this scrapbook paper. You can get it individual sheets or just get a big pad of watercolor paper. But these little cards like this, well, they're great. You can just buy one, use it as a template. In fact, I took and I opened up the envelope to use myself a template. Now I can use the Scan and Cut to cut templates of just regular paper so I can make my own envelopes too. There's all kinds of options. Now I have a handout for this in all of my other videos. And if you go to moresew.com/shop and go down to the bottom of that page, Sewing Tech Talk with Cathy, click on that and there's all the handouts for all of my videos. So I talked to you about doing this. Even if you want to embroider on toilet tissue, it's in that handout as well. And there's all kinds of fun ideas, I think. So here's my liner. Now, remember, I stitched it on that cutaway stabilizer. I didn't use thread, so the stabilizer supported the card while I'm embroidering. But here's the cool thing. If you're into perforations, and I think I now am, there's no thread to hold it down. It just lifts right off. So there's my happy spring. I'm going to use it as the liner for my card. And that, my friends, is a pretty fancy card. When I glue it down, I'm going to use a glue stick, and oh my goodness, I don't think they're going to throw this card away. So there's lots of different options to use when you're either stitching on paper or you're stitching on paper without thread. You're all kinds of opportunities. Remember, you're using watercolor paper. You could even watercolor something or have a kid do it and make their own card. I think the options, the creativity, well, between you and the machine and even the Scan and Cut, limitless. I'm going to shoot it off to George. Thank you for watching me today. And I think the card giving might be a lost art. Let's revive it. And let's use our embroidery machine. George is going to tell you a little bit more about the machine, but there's so much you can do with it.
Thanks, Cathy. That was an incredible presentation. And so let's go over the special offer we have on the Brother Stellaire series. So we have the XJ2, which is their combination sewing and embroidery, and the XE2, which is dedicated embroidery. They both share the same embroidery features, which is a large 9.5 by 14 inch embroidery area with over 780 built-in embroidery designs, and of them, over 100 of them are Disney. It also has over 30 fonts and large, beautiful monograms. And with the fonts, you can edit in all kinds of arrangements. You can arc, you can array, you can even cut and paste and kern it in some custom ways. Speaking of customization, you can take a design and do an automatic applique around it. And with the matrix copy, you can copy this very quickly to make patches. And if we had the scan and cut, we can actually send it to the scan and cut out those patches, and then embroider them beautifully. An additional advanced technology is a new 2-point laser positioning. I can take something like a name and position it perfectly on a line. I can use it to do multiple hoopings and match them perfectly. I can even use it for edge-to-edge quilting. Now, part of what the Stellaire series offers is a special relationship with the scan and cut. They actually can marry together, so I can send an applique design right from my machine and it will cut it out perfectly for beautiful applique. But better yet, I can send a design from my scan and cut and turn it into embroidery. It also unlocks a new feature where I can choose one of the colors of my design, whether if it's a built-in design, I can choose that and turn it into applique. But let's take that heart that I sent over. I turn it into embroidery. I select the color, and now it's applique. Now let's bring over the third part of the piece. I want to create my own fabric, and I can do that with Print Moda. I took an image of a rose and I arranged it just in a beautiful kaleidoscope of color. And I printed that fabric and placed it on in the scan and cut. I took my design I created on the Stellaire from the scan and cut, sent it over to the scan and cut it out, and I have one complete embroidery design created with that trifecta of creativity. Now the XJ2 also is a sewing machine, and it has a large 11.25 inch opening, beautiful lighting. It has 760 built-in stitches, from quilting stitches to applique to utility. It even has automatic stippling and some beautiful decorative stitches that are very, very wide. It also has an automatic 1/4 inch feature which moves the needle over a 1/4 inch from the foot, and you can use the laser guidance it has on there so you can just do some beautiful piecing. It also has amazing fabric control with an automatic fabric sensor, and this gives you the ability to sense multiple layers like in denim, or if I want to sew on some sheer fabric like this tricot, I can do that beautifully, or even working with elastics. It handles the fabric beautifully. If it's even more extreme, we can add the digital dual feed. This is a belt-driven feed system that gives perfect contact on the fabric. And so you see here with this marine vinyl, there's no slippage. I also can use it with such things as minky, which is hard to sew with, and of course, quilting. For more information on this incredible product, click on the link to see our current special offer. You can email us at customerservice@moores-sew.com or call us at 1-800-865-9664.